This video will cover the even problems on page 4.7 and 4.8 notes. So a proportion, again, is when it says that two ratios, or essentially two fractions, are equal to each other. So that is what this looks like right here. These two fractions are equal to each other. And we use something called their cross product to either tell if they're equal or to solve them. So the cross product says you take the two that are diagonal from each other and multiply, and do that same thing with the other two. Multiply those and see if they're the same. So on our first one, we're going to take 2 times 15 and see, is that equal to 3 times 8? 2 times 15 is 30. 3 times 8 is 24. So those are not equal. So no, they do not form a proportion. So that's all you have to do, is you need to multiply two that are diagonal from each other, then the other two, and see if it's the same number or not. Now, you do not need to write this step out if you don't want. If you just know to multiply, that's great. So that's what this would look like. 8 times 45 gives me 360. Does that equal 18 times 28? 504. Not equal, so no, they don't form a proportion. All right, so as long as you know to multiply, you don't have to write out that first step that's showing the multiplication. Number 6, 7 times 8 is 56. Does that equal 1.6 times 35, which is also 56? So that is a yes. Those two do equal each other. And number 8, 16.2 times 38 gives me 615.6. Does that equal 68.4 times 9, which gives me 615.6? So yes. So it might be weird numbers, but you still just multiply the ones that are diagonal to see if it ends up being the same number. Now, to solve them, you still use the cross product. So that was written over here. All right, A times D, so the two that are across from each other, equals B times C, the other two that are diagonal. So over on number 10, 7 times K is equal to 8 times 21. So that is the most, this will show you the most work you would have to do. If you need to write out the multiplication each time, that's totally fine. So the way we write 7 times K is just 7K equals 8 times 21 is 168. Most of you will probably be able to just go right to this step and not have to write that out, okay? If you're able to know just to multiply and do the multiplication right off the bat, that's great. All right, now we have to solve for K, so it's 7 times K. So to undo times 7, we need to divide by 7. Divide by 7, and we get K equals 24. If you want to check your answer, which is always a good idea, you would set up 7 over 8 equals 21 over 24. And again, you can do this two ways. You could actually divide 7 divided by 8 and see what that decimal is, and 21 divided by 24, make sure they match. Otherwise, you can do what we just did above. 7 times 24 gives us 168, and 8 times 21 also gives us 168, so yes. All right, so if you want to check, you just set up the proportion and check to make sure that it works. Number 12, A times 63 is equal to 9 times 14. Again, if you don't need to write that step out, then don't. A times 63 means we just write it as 63A. 9 times 14 gives us 126, so don't forget the equal sign between those two. All right, so again, if you don't need to write this step out, that's fine. You could start right with 63A equals 126. So then we need to divide by 63. A equals 2. So again, if you want to check, you're going to do 2 over 9 equals 14 over 63. So you can cross multiply, make sure they're the same, or you could divide each fraction to make sure their decimals are the same. Number 14. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the order. I want my variable to go first, so I'm going to do the m times the 4 first, and it's totally okay to do it that way. All right, so I would start mine as 4m, so again, you always put the number first and then the letter, equals 1.2 times 11 gives me 13.2. All right, so I went out of order and I didn't show my first step. If you want to show everything, m times 4 equals 1.2 times 11 first, then get to that point, that's fine. If you went the other way and did 13.2 equals 4m, that is fine too. All right, so there's all different ways you can do this. As long as you multiply the two that are diagonal, equals, and then the other two, that's totally fine. Now we just need to divide by 4 to get our final answer. And we get m equals 3.3. So it is okay to get a decimal for an answer. So I'm going to do the same thing with 16. I see the v over here, so I'm going to do these two first. So 64v equals 2.25 times 8 gives me 18. So then I need to divide by 64, and v equals 0.28125. If you would rather just leave that as a simplified fraction, since it's kind of a long decimal, it would be 9 over 32. So either way, 9 over 32 or the 0.28125. Number 18 is a little weird. We have 2 times 7c. So you need to do 2 times 7 is 14, and then bring the c along. Equals 15 times 8.4, which is 126. Divide by 14, divide by 14, c equals 9. All right, so again, you just multiply two that are diagonal from each other, put an equal sign, then multiply the other two, and then you will always divide to get your final answer. We are not going to do the last one, so we'll stop at 18.